Hello and welcome to another Magic the Gathering unboxing. Today we're going to be looking at the Blessed versus Cursed dual decks. So it took me a little while to get hold of one of these. These seem to be in quite high demand. And I'm assuming it's because of our friend here, Geist of St. Traft. But no doubt these dual decks will be filtering through to box stores either already or real soon. So I suspect these should be fairly easy to pick up. The lead cards in here are Geist of St. Traft on one side, on the Blessed side, and Mind Rack Demon on the other side. I must admit I'm not a big fan of the new artwork. I actually prefer the previous artwork on Geist of St. Traft. But anyway, we're going to be opening this in a moment. What I thought I'd do first, for the benefit of anybody that hadn't seen any of my previous dual decks unboxings, is just go through basically what dual decks are all about. So if we flip this over, we can see that basically we can learn a bit about the contents. So we've got two 60 card decks, 10 creature tokens, 2 deck boxes, strategy insert, so obviously going to tell us how to play the deck, magic rules reference card, and 2 spin down life counters. Now, the dual decks have been around for quite a while now. 2007 was the first time this product came out, so that was elves versus goblins. And to some degree, they have alternated between sort of 2 types, really. On the one hand, in like the elves versus goblins, you've got this tribal theme going on. And then another type of dual deck is the Planeswalker as the lead card. So the second dual deck they released in 2008 was Jace versus Chandra. And then it went to Divine versus Demonic, which was Angels versus Demons essentially, and Garrick versus Liliana. So we're back to Planeswalkers. And those first 4 decks, which were ultimately quite difficult to get hold of over time, were reprinted as part of the Dual Decks anthology, and I've got a video up from, I think it was last year or the year before. That would be Christmas, Christmas of 2000, around about November of 2014 actually, was when I did that. So that collected together the 4 decks all in sort of new packaging. So that's pretty neat if you can still get hold of those. Then it went to Phyrexian versus the Coalition, so another themed around a certain type of thing, either tribal or a group of creature types. Then Elspeth versus Tezzeret, so we're back to Planeswalkers. Knights versus Dragons, well that's pretty obvious what that was. Ajani versus Nicol Bolas. So you can see this sort of switching backwards and forwards. Then the next one after that was Venser versus Koth, so we've got another Planeswalker, and then they go back to alternating. So it's Izzet versus Golgari, Sorin versus Tybalt, Heroes versus Monsters, Jace versus Vraska, Speed versus Cunning, Elspeth versus Kiora, Zendikar versus Eldrazi, and then we've got Blessed versus Curse. So again, we've got a sort of doubling up here. So we've got Zendikar versus Eldrazi, which is more of a sort of tribally themed thing, and then Blessed versus Cursed, which we might expect, if we're following that pattern, for this to be a Planeswalker-led deck, but it's not. Sometimes with these as well, both lead cards could be, say, a legendary creature, but that's not always the case. Okay, so just so you know what to expect when you start looking at other dual deck products. I suppose what they really do highlight in essence is some sort of rivalry. That's really the key thing between this. Is it could be 2 rival factions, 2 rival planeswalkers, and there's often a tie-in to some either current or future storyline. So the other cool thing they do with this now is you'll get cards in here which are in an upcoming set. There's also things like alternate artwork as well. The lead cards are always foil, and there's often a number of rares, and that can vary between 6 and 10. And there's usually say 4 alternate artworks in here as well. So, and they sometimes mess about with the rarity as well on the cards. So you might get something that switches to say a mythic rare when it was originally printed in a rare, and they'll also have things like new flavour text. So there's plenty going on in these decks. Out of probably all of the, the so-called sort of pre-cons, so that's when you line up intro decks, event decks, which are no more now. Duel decks are definitely my favourite. I like the way they draw in from different sets throughout Magic's history, reprint old cards, and I think I like it because there is an essence of EDH in there. Like, there's quite a few singletons, and it pulls on interesting interactions with old cards. So if you're into that sort of seeing cards that wouldn't necessarily normally interact within, say, a standard metagame, seeing how cards from other sets interact, it's great fun to see that, both between the decks and with cards within the deck. So let's open this up and get the unboxing underway. So that's what it's all about. Okay, this looks good. A nicely presented box here. So I'll do what I normally do is we'll just flip open the this sort of guide that you get, and to show you why I think it's so useful. Okay, so if you like your Magic history, let me try and position this. It's a bit tricky. Camera a bit close to the edge of the desk here. I don't know how well that's coming up on the screen. It's a bit shiny. So we got the Blessed deck here, and what they've done is that they've highlighted up anywhere where there's new artwork. So you see here there's like an asterisk on here, shows you new artwork. And they've also listed the notable printings for these cards, because many of these cards will have multiple printings. So you can see already it's going to stand out which ones are in the upcoming Shadows over Innistrad set, which hasn't been released yet. So we've got Doppelgeist here. What else have we got? Eerie Interlude. Pour Over the Pages. Stuff like that. It's also interesting to see where the artwork, they don't mention it, but what particular plane the artwork comes from as well, and where it ties in with like the lead card. Just looking at this, you can see how heavily dependent it is on the original Innistrad block. You can see you've got Innistrad cards here, you've got Avacyn Restored cards, there's some Dark Ascension stuff, there's a little bit of Time Spiral here, and a mention of Magic Origins, Kanzatok here, we've got Tranquil Coven here. So going over to the curse side, again, yeah, very heavy inclusion of Innistrad, Dark Ascension, Avacyn Restored, and you can see again we've got Shadows over Innistrad, Tooth Collector, and what else? Mindwrack Demon, Compelling Deterrence is in here, and we've got a few things like there's one Bartram Blood from Mirrodin, another Time Spiral card, and some Khans and Fate Reforged for mana fixing. So it's pretty tight actually, the composition of this deck in terms of sets. It's not quite as varied, I don't think, as you normally see. Oh, there's the regular rules reference card, which they've now really condensed that down. Oh, here's our deck boxes. And there's Geist on the back of that one. So these deck boxes are basically just going to hold your unsleeved cards until you get to a point where you put some sleeves on them. The other thing to notice for this, and I haven't seen it yet for this one, is that Ultra Pro normally do a special deck box which can be used for these. So it takes 2 decks, and there's like a deck box in a deck box. So there's a very wide deck box, and then there's 2 smaller deck boxes that the cards go in. And of course they are deck boxes where they're designed to take sleeve cards. So that's something to watch out for. Okay, we've got 2 nice spin down counters here. So this is the one on the cursed side. So the other thing about this is these particular dual decks have their own set logo on them. So they don't put the set logo from the set they're from. They actually have their own little dual deck logo, which is specific to the Blessed versus Cursed dual deck. That's pretty important actually if you like to catalogue your collection, and you've got one of those cataloguing programs, or you do it online, because they'll mostly be able to differentiate between these cards and the original, because that's obviously important for the different artwork and things like that. In fact, they could be have been in their original card borders as well. Okay, so let's look firstly at the lead card on here, Geist of Saint Traft. So this is 1 colourless white blue. It's a 2/2 legendary creature, Spirit Cleric with hexproof. So the creature can't be blocked. It can't be the target of spells or abilities your opponents control. Whenever Geist of Saint Traft attacks, put a 4/4 white angel creature token with flying onto the battlefield, tapped and attacking. Exile that token at end of combat. So let's look at the deck itself now. You can see already we've got a Champion of the Parish on the top here. So it'd be interesting to see if it sort of breaks out of the 2 colours of the lead creature. I mean, there's no requirement to stick to those, but it's always good to see what they do in the colour pie. So Champions of the Parish, this is a rare. It's 1 single white for 1/1. Whenever another human enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on Champion of the Parish. So Dearly Departed, 4 and 2 white. Be careful here, I probably said it already not to call it 4 colourless, because technically speaking it's not. So we're not under the new rules anyway. So it's 4 mana of any colour, white for a 5/5 creature spirit flying. As long as Dearly Departed is in your graveyard, each human creature you control enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it. Eerie Interlude, 2 and a white, instant, exile any number of target creatures you control, return those cards to the battlefield under their owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. Increasing Devotion, 3 and 2 white, sorcery, put 5/1/1 white human creature tokens on the battlefield. If Increasing Devotion was cast from a graveyard, put 10 of those tokens onto the battlefield instead. Flashback 2 and 2 white, flashback 7 and 2 white. Captain of the Mists, another rare, 2 and a blue for 2/3 creature human wizard. Whenever another human enters the battlefield under your control, untap Captain of the Mists. 1 and a blue, tap. You may tap or untap target permanent. So now we're moving on to all the things that aren't rares in terms of creatures here. So we've got Cathedral Sanctifier is in here, Doomed Traveller. So again, we're seeing token production. Nephilia Smuggler, which is uncommon in this deck. Moorland Inquisitor, Topplegeist, 2 of those. So this is a new card. Flying, when Topplegeist enters the battlefield, tap target creature an opponent controls has Delirium on it. At the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, if there are 4 or more card types among the creatures in your graveyard, tap target creature that player controls, and that's 1 white to cast. Thraben Heretic, Elder Cathar, so a couple of those. Village Bellringer is in here. Tandem Lookout. It's got Soul Bond on it. Chapelgeist. Emancipation Angel. So we're seeing what? Humans, spirits and angels. Fiend Hunter. Slayer of the Wicked. Towergeist. Mist Raven. Spectral Guard, that also has Soul Bond on it. Griff Vanguard. Gold Knight Redeemer. Voice of the Provinces. You can see there's a lot of one-offs here. Sharpened Pitchfork. So we're moving on to our artifacts here. Enchantment here. Bonds of Faith. Gather the Townsfolk. So another way of getting tokens onto the battlefield. There's a couple of those. Momentary Blink is in here. Notice the flashback cost is 2 and a blue on this one. Butcher's Cleaver, so we've got equipment. Rebuke, so some instants here. A couple of those. Pour over the pages. So we've got card draw, and we can untap 2 lands and then discard a card. So moving on to our land, our non-basic is Seraph Sanctuary. So when it enters the battlefield you gain 1 life. Whenever an angel enters the battlefield under your control you gain 1 life. Tap, add colourless to your mana pool. So that is the proper colourless mana symbol. Tranquil Cove is going to be fixing white and blue here, and also when it enters the battlefield we gain 1 life. And there's actually 4 of those, so we're getting a full play set of those. Although that's at common, if you sort of open a lot of packs you've probably got quite a few of those already. And then we move on to the land, the basic land. So just going to flip through these so you can get a feel for the artwork. So if you're like me and you like the land artwork, it's always good to see that. Obviously depending on the set that it's drawn for, you're only going to see 3 or 4 pieces of artwork for each colour of mana. And here's our token. So I suspect these are double-sided, like they've been doing a lot recently, which is really handy. So we've got angel on one side. Oh no, that's not. That's interesting then. So human, yep, so these are all one-sided tokens. So human, another human, and another human. Not surprisingly, seeing as the deck seems to produce an awful lot of human tokens. So that's an angel token for your Geist of Saint Traft and a human token for all the other cards that are producing lots of humans. Okay, so we'll move on to our demon deck now. This is our cursed deck. So this is Mindrack Demon, 2 and 2 black for a 4/5 creature demon with flying trample. When Mindrack Demon enters the battlefield, put the top 4 cards of your library into your graveyard. This also has Delirium on it. At the beginning of your upkeep, you lose 4 life unless there are 4 or more card types among cards in your graveyard. So we're going to be interesting to see how this deck interacts with the graveyard if we're basically shoving cards into the graveyard. Do we have things like flashback? Okay, this is proving different. Oh, there we go. Okay, so we'll look at our rares first because they're at the top here. Havengul Rune Binder, 2 and 2 blue, 2/2 creature human wizard, 2 and a blue, tap, exile a creature card from your graveyard, put a 2/2 black zombie creature token onto the battlefield, then put a +1/+1 counter on each zombie creature you control. So looks like zombies could be a thing here. Oh, there we go. Gravecrawler. Single black, 2/1, Gravecrawler can't block. You may cast Gravecrawler from your graveyard as long as you control a zombie. So this is another one of the more pricey cards in the deck. Harvester of Souls, 4 and 2 black for 5/5 Death Touch creature demon. Whenever another token creature dies, you may draw a card. Sever the Bloodline, 3 and a black sorcery. Exile target creature and all other creatures with the same name as that creature, and it's got flashback of 5 and 2 black, so you can cast this from your graveyard. Unbreathing Horde, 2 and a black creature zombie. It's 0/0, so obviously the rules text are going to tell us how we're going to get power toughness here. Unbreathing Horde enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it for each other zombie you control and each zombie card in your graveyard. If Unbreathing Horde would be dealt damage, prevent that damage and remove a +1/+1 counter from it. Dargraph Ghoul is in here, so we're now moving on to our non-rares. Single black for 2/2, enters the battlefield tapped. Butcher Ghoul, and there's a couple of those. Screeching Scab, and we have 3 of those. Tooth Collector, Scrape Skin Drake, Ghoul Razor, a couple of those. There's a Stitch Drake in here, actually a couple of those as well. So there seems to be more, or sort of less one-offs in this particular deck. Diregraph Captain is in here. So this is the creature zombie soldier from the original Innistrad block. So it was interesting because it basically pumps other zombies. So it's for white, blue, black you get a 2/2 with Death Touch, but also other zombie creatures you control get +1/+1. And whenever another zombie you control dies, target opponent loses 1 life. And there's actually, because of that, there's a couple of those in here. Abattoir Ghouls in here. We've got a vampire in here, Driver of the Dead. So that's going to get stuff back from the graveyard to the battlefield, but only creature cards that have a converted mana cost of 2 or less. Falcon Wrath Noble, Makeshift Mauler, Relentless Scabs, Appetite for Brains, Human Frailty, destroys a target human creature, so pretty appropriate when you're going up against that other deck. Cobbled Wings, so we're moving on to our artifact equipment. We've got some instants here. Compelling Deterrence, Victim of Night is in here, not surprising in a deck containing black mana. Tribute, and obviously when you're going up against humans, that destroy target non-vampire, non-werewolf, non-zombie is useful. Tribute to Hunger. Forbidden Alchemy is in here. It's got flashback on it as well, which is going to be useful if that ends up in the graveyard. Bartering Blood causes each player to sacrifice 2 creatures. But if you've got a mechanism for getting stuff back from the graveyard in this deck, then it's not, necessarily a problem. Return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. And there you go, 2 and 2 black. That's Dread Return, with also has flashback on it. Moan of the Unhallowed. So we've got a way of getting zombie tokens onto the battlefield. And there's a couple of those. And then in this deck, our mana fixing is in the form of Dismal Backwater, so this is going to help us do the blue-black thing. It enters the battlefield tapped, and like the other one in the other deck, yeah, when you enter, you gain. When it enters the battlefield, you gain 1 life. And I suspect there'll be a full play set of these in here. And then we're just moving on to our artwork here. So you can get a feel for the black and the blue here. This is something that very slippery about freshly opened sealed product. It makes it difficult to handle. Okay, so in a moment we should be on our tokens. Let's have a look. Okay, so more humans. So I suspect it's just simply because the other deck that you use has a requirement to generate lots of human tokens. We've got a spirit here, and then our zombies. And again, it's all single-sided tokens. Okay, so there we have it. That's the unboxing for the newly released Duel deck. That is Blessed versus Cursed. So on the one side you have Geist of Saint Traft, and on the other side you have Mind Rack Demon. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.